Hey y'all, it is Thomas Hendricks with Cronin24 here in New York City, and as part 2 of our conversation with Justin Tse, we are doing a watch hunting episode today. For those who might not be familiar, Justin Tse is an entrepreneur based out of Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. Justin has over 750,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel, covering the tech world, lifestyle, travel, interior design. We did a previous conversation going over the overlaps between the watch world and the tech world, which is very interesting, so check that out if you have not already. Justin, thanks so much for coming back.
Thanks for having me.
And I would say, a lot of times for watch hunting, it's a race against the clock. I have a tiny little yellow Seiko timer and then say go, and then we're off to the races. But, full transparency, we're filming this on a Friday afternoon here. I know you work 7 days a week, but I don't. So we're gonna take it at a very leisurely pace today. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
So, okay, so let's get right into it. I know you have kind of a short list, a mental list of watches that you're thinking about. Where do you want to start?
So I'd say the first piece that I would like to bring back is an AP Royal Oak. And looking back at selling that, I don't exactly regret it because I utilized that to purchase the Daytona, but it almost feels like selling a piece of real estate that I later regret. And people always say it's good to hold and to wait on it, but at the time it wasn't really growing in value very quickly. So I figured, it wasn't in the best condition, all my fault, but yeah, I sold it at a profit and and switched it over to the Daytona, which at the time I believe was about 25,000 American on the secondary market, and it was completely brand new, had all the paperwork, box, still wrapped in plastic, 2019 one, and so yeah, I really do want to bring back an AP Royal Oak. I would say the 15400 is the most common one that everyone kind of sees. And a 41 millimeter is probably what I'd want to go for. I had the 39 millimeter before. It felt a little bit on the small end, but I think a 41 millimeter or a thin model, which I know they have a few of now, would probably make the most sense just because I don't have the biggest wrists, and at the same time, just because of my lifestyle, I also don't want to have something that's too bulky. Something a lot of people also notice in my videos is that I wear my watch on the right side, and the reason for that is I write left-handed, and so I've just never felt natural wearing a watch on the left side. I don't know, I just can't do it. So I know I don't know, people were asking, but I didn't think it was out of normal because naturally I've always worn a watch on the right side. But yeah, the AP Royal Oak is definitely one that I want to bring back. Just a simple one, but my dream one would probably be the gold with a black face. I feel like that's very classy, but a little bit out there. But
interesting.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you're going for the gold. I would picture you more of a steel guy, very clean, white shoes, black crew neck, black t-shirt kind of thing. But yeah, what is it about the gold that is this a little pop? Is a little, little pat on the back for doing so well professionally, or what's the? I like to psychoanalyze people by the watches that they choose, so I'm just trying to dig a little bit here.
Yeah, when it comes to the story behind watches, I purchased my first watch just after I hit 500,000 subscribers, and I always said that first watch was going to be a silver one, a stainless steel, something simple, not crazy expensive, at least at the time, and that eventually when I hopefully hit 1 million subscribers one day, that's when I'll go ahead and purchase a gold watch. That way there's still a bit of a story behind it, because I feel my first few purchases were more so there was an opportunity to purchase one, and so yeah, I think I do have to dress up to the gold a little bit more eventually, but I feel it comes in waves. Sometimes I'm more into a silver and a muted look, and similar to interior design. On my first property, I went with gold hardware. On the second one, I went with matte black hardware. On the third one, I did silver again, and then on the fourth one, we're going back to a matte black, but with some small touches of gold. And I think, yeah, with trends, I'm not sure in the watch industry, has stainless steel been the one that's been the most prominent in the past couple of years, or is gold just something that is just everlasting but not as volatile?
I would say it's actually the opposite. Well, in that steel has been king for, past couple decades, especially from a value perspective. It's really been the most reliable investment, or just, stylistically, a lot more people feel comfortable wearing a steel watch. And for sport watches like a Royal Oak, it started off as kind of the first luxury steel sports watch. So you get that historical aspect of it there with precious metals, gold, two-tone even. It's a little more ebb and flow depending on the year, depending on the era. Obviously the 1980s were big for gold and two-tone. And like everything, fashion is a cyclical beast. And so I think now we're starting to see the beginning of that. A lot of other brands. So, for example, like in addition, or if you want a counterpoint to the Royal Oak, Vacheron Constantin just came out with the 222, only in gold for now, in yellow gold for right now. But that is one that gained a whole lot of attention, I think is building even more momentum for that segment of the market. Very similar DNA-wise to the Royal Oak, but it is interesting that they launched it first in a yellow gold versus a steel, although I do think we'll see that coming up in the future. But yeah, as far as Rolex goes, steel has been king. As far as AP goes, steel is king. Even for the Nautilus, steel is king. But I think people are, as prices for those really go through the roof, I think people are branching out and getting a little bit more adventurous, especially now that the world is opening up a little bit more. They just want to, show off a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of my first selection, I think the 15400 ST makes a lot of sense. I haven't hit 1 million subscribers yet, so I think the gold one is going to have to wait. And I need to kind of do a whole wardrobe overhaul to be able to, I think, pull that off without drawing too much attention. But yeah, these prices have gone up a lot since I last saw it, but apparently it's only going to go up, just like real estate a lot of the times. And so, yeah, this is the one that I think is going to be added to the list right here. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at it as well. So we're going to head over to the notepad, and you can see it has the black face. So yeah, very similar to the 15300 that I picked up, just essentially in a 41 millimeter model, but yeah, absolutely beautiful. I love the fact that it has that octagonal top. The brushed metal on the front looks incredible as well. But most importantly, I just love the way the link looks on the Royal Oak with all the dimensions, the fine details, and how they hold together. And of course, the skeleton design is also something that I love about certain AP models. Just being able to see the inner workings of it when you take it off at the end of the day. But yeah, I really do miss it. Looking at these photos now, I love the Daytona, but yeah.
I'll give you another a little bit more deep cut in the Royal Oak family, and I think one that a lot of people don't know about, but is kind of gaining steam right now. Why don't you go ahead and just type in Royal Oak dual time and see what comes up. So this is a model that has been discontinued in the the advantage here is you obviously have gold and steel versions, of course, and a few different dial colors. But on the dial specifically, if you click into one of these, you'll see you have you have a little bit more going on than just a standard time and date. So you have a little power reserve, you have a day and night indicator, you have a whole separate dial just for second time zone, which I know you travel around the world a bunch, which could come in handy, and a little date up there as well in a different format than a date window. So the cool thing about these is you get a little bit more panache because it's a vintage watch. You're still in the Royal Oak family, so you still get that gravitas there. And the good thing, I know you're an investment-minded person. The good thing about these is that while they are pre-owned and things like that, they're not making them anymore. So it's a finite amount, and so they're just not going to be any more coming out of the factory as far as we can tell.
Absolutely. And I feel on the topic of gold, this right here looks really good because it has the elements that the Royal Oak is known for, of course, with the main face, but at the same time, it's a little bit more muted and very everyday, casual, but classy with that vintage feel and that band there. I'm a huge fan of silicone bands, leather bands. I just find them a lot more comfortable, honestly. So yeah, I feel this is a nice dinner watch to be able to pair with a specific outfit. But yeah, it's actually cool that you brought that up because I have seen these around, but specifically didn't know the story behind them, the exclusivity, and also the fact that they're vintage ones out of the AP family.
Yeah, and it's a cool thing where it's, think about someone seeing your watch from across the room. They recognize the shape, the octagonal bezel of Royal Oak. And then
Yeah.
whether they get a little bit closer, whether you kind of keep that secret to yourself, you kind of have that extra little edge of having a vintage model, a discontinued model, and something with some complications in there. So really using Audemars Piguet's
Absolutely.
expertise in complications, you get a touch of that as well. So yeah, you cover a lot of bases there. It's a personal favorite of mine. I think we're seeing prices go up for these as they are going up for everything, Royalists especially. But this is, yeah, something where you can check off a lot of your personal boxes and be a little unexpected, a little spontaneous at the same time. Well, let's okay, so we got our Royal Oak check. We got some heavy hitters going on. What else is on your list? Let's go to watch number 2.
So the next watch is probably like a bucket list one that's probably a little bit further down the road, but as someone who's really into sports, Formula One, I watch like very occasional tennis, but just seeing athletes wear it and play their respective sports while seamlessly having it is really cool, is Richard Mille.
Yeah, which any models in particular jump out to you?
I would say, so when it comes to RMs, I don't really know the lineup very, very specifically. It's kind of like with the Porsche 911s. There are so many models out there, and there's like a whole story behind it. And until you're actually ready to purchase one, you don't really learn the specific models and all that kind of stuff. And so from a general standpoint, I think an entry-level RM that I'd be looking at would be like an RM005. It gets that gold checked off the box. It is definitely quite loud, even for my liking. I know there's RMs that are significantly crazier than this, but it's just not something that I'd wear every single day. I find the Submariner or the Daytona is one that you can generally wear and tuck it underneath, but an RM is just, it's a statement piece. And after seeing one recently in person, you notice it, and people who are also into watches notice it right away. It's the same thing with cars. There are ones that are amazing and a little bit more discreet, and there are others that really do make a statement, like a Ferrari. And I feel like this has that kind of presence to it. But an RM005 is I feel like one where it has gold and black look. I've also seen it in different colors. I feel like the orange actually looks pretty good as well. The baby blue strap's another one that I've seen, but honestly not something that I could really pull off. And the yellow one, I feel like has a bit of flair to it. So yeah, I mean, I haven't really looked into the specific details of the RM models, but I like the fact that they use different materials. They have the carbon fiber and the tech behind that. But yeah, this is definitely one that
what we talked about. Yeah, before in our previous conversation as well, as far as technologically advanced takes on more or less classic watchmaking, Richard Mille is really cream of the crop. Let's click into one of these and get a little close up, because that's really where a lot of the meat is for an RM.
Yeah, so I mean, this one's actually a little bit on the simple side, would you say? It has the brushed gold look, but there are some that are just significantly more sophisticated at much higher price points. But would you consider this kind of a more muted for an RM?
Relative term, yeah, for an RM. And I also do, I think this is the first time in history someone has used the phrase entry-level Richard Mille, but it is, I mean, just to put that world in perspective. If you're looking for a pop of color, you're looking for something that is a noticeable sign of success, you really hit the nail on the head with that. Would you go for more of a muted, or would you go for the full Rafael Nadal, bright colors kind of thing? What's your thought process there?
It's tough because if you're spending this kind of money, a lot of times you're well, might as well go with something a little bit crazy, but at the same time, it's also how often are you going to be able to wear it? Is it something that you intend to collect? And maybe a crazier color is one that may not go with many outfits as an everyday situation, but it's one that you can keep in your drawer. It'll increase in value over time. Maybe it's a little bit more rare. But I think it would depend on the specific model. I know RM does a lot of different collabs, whether it's with Formula One teams, with actors and all that, and that's where maybe a crazy color makes a lot of sense. But my perspective right now is definitely the blacks, the silver, the gold, and so if I was to pick an RM right now, it'd be this. Would you say this is kind of the starting price point for an RM at the moment, or is there another model that might be worth looking into as well?
We're in the six figures, so that's where they start and end typically. I would say, if we're gonna go for some alternatives to an RM, I don't know if we'll have any because they're pretty rare, but type in Royal Oak concept and see what comes up. This is one for any watch nerds out there who've seen videos with John Mayer before. He doesn't have
wow.
an RM that I know of, but he is a big Audemars Piguet fan. And so with that, you get, I think his quote was, it's like a Richard Mille, but with like hundreds of years of history behind it. So with these ones, yeah, maybe just like anyone that jumps out, click in and zoom in a little bit.
Wow. The
But yeah, the
black,
cool
I mean,
thing
the
is
all
here-
black look is, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
So it's very futuristic from, I think, the oldest family-owned brand in the watch world. So it's really like very much a best of both worlds. You're hitting on two opposite ends of the spectrum as far as heritage and futurism, but in a way that kind of works.
Yeah, this is crazy. Is that like can you see all the way through the front face of this watch, or?
Yeah, you can. So you'll be able to see your arm hairs through there, which there are differing opinions on, but I think it's cool just because it adds some levity to the watch. It keeps it a little bit lighter on top
sure.
of being very light in and of itself. So I mean, these ones are super cool. If I had RM money, this is probably what I would go for, because you'll get the Richard Mille crowd being like, ooh, what is that? You know, I've never seen that before. And it's still, technically speaking, technologically speaking, on the same level of that, but with, again, a deeper reservoir of history in there as well.
Absolutely, yeah, that's cool. I've seen this, but I didn't know the specific model and how it ties with the RM. And it is nice that they have it still integrated, the octagonal look on the front with the brushed metal. And I think on the topic of translucency, I remembered like RM also does have like a watch that is fully translucent all the way through, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so they actually make cases out of sapphire glass. So what the crystal in your watch is made out of, they will do a whole case out of that. I think Beyonce has one. And they do like colored glasses as well, so like green tinted sapphires. I mean, they're RM, they'll do whatever they want to. Their R&D department is first and foremost. They can do pretty much, make a watch out of anything. Another, I would say a little bit more approachable, or definitely more approachable, look up Omega Speedmaster Dark Side of the Moon. That will be a much more
I actually had that on my list somewhere.
Oh, well, let's take a look. So this is one, and we'll see it in a second when you pull up the results. This is one where you do get a little transparency to it, a little bit more design edge to it, also with a pop of color. But price-wise, much more reasonable, again, relative to an RM or an AP Concept. But you still, you cover a lot of the bases that you would. So if you don't have $1 billion, this would be a good one to consider.
Yeah, and I mean the yellow, I really like the yellow on this. I love matte black, and in terms of like my favorite sports car combination, if I was to go with like a black interior, I think yellow deviated stitching is probably my favorite combination there. I know red is like very overdone. It's like been popular for a while now, but personally, like my dream combination would be like a chalk 911 or silver 911 with a black interior and a yellow stitch. And this kind of checks that box of like a bold matte black look, but at the same time at a price point that is a lot more, I guess, affordable in the watch world comparative to some of the options that we've taken a look at. And at the same time, it has like that sports strap. So you're able to, I guess, wear it comfortably every day. And at the same time, it still has the ability to see right through it. And on the front, you also have like the yellow kind of offset, so I like all those elements of this watch. And it's a cool one that you mentioned because I just learned about it and just started looking at it recently.
Yeah, it's a little bit more in your face, but you get a nod from watch collectors because you're still tapping into that Speedmaster heritage. I think this one is a little bit larger case size, but it is made out of ceramic, so you still that wrist presence without the weight behind it.
So like the next watch on my list is actually like a Rolex Yachtmaster.
Are you going metal bracelet or for the Oyster Flex?
I like the Oyster Flex. So the Oyster Flex is that silicone band, right?
Yep, exactly. So with that, you get like a high-low between a Rolex, even in a precious metal, for example, with a rubber strap, but makes it sporty. It's certainly very easy to clean, easy to wear. So you'll see that catching on. I think Rolex even came out with more Yachtmasters on Oyster Flex recently.
Yeah, I think I saw like the 2022 has some new models as well. But the reason why I like the Yachtmaster particularly is that it has, once again, that black, matte black touch on the front around that dial. But there's also some gold, not too much of it. The black face is nice, but yeah, the strap with the Oyster Flex, I really do like that. It just looks like a very comfortable watch, and it has like elements of, I guess, the Submariner in terms of its style. But in terms of size, how does it kind of compare with the typical Submariner?
Numbers wise, it's going to fit in between. I would say a Daytona and a Submariner. The Submariner has bumped up recently to 41 millimeters. Again, it's a 1 millimeter difference. But you know, that stuff does count as far as the feel on your wrist. With the Yachtmaster, a lot of it comes down to what the material is made out of. So you'll have precious metal ones, which have some more weight to them. But if you get the Oyster Flats, then that takes away a lot of the weight. So it really just, I would say, you know, it's going to be a little bit more substantial than a Daytona, but maybe not quite as much as a steel Submariner on a steel bracelet.
But at the same time, with that kind of bracelet, it just is a lot lighter. It's like, so I feel like this Yachtmaster just makes a lot of sense because it's adding it into the rotation. As you mentioned, it's right in the middle in terms of the size. It's very comfortable, but at the same time, it looks a little bit different than both the Daytona and the Submariner. So it isn't like a crossover over anything in the lineup.
And the cool thing is there are a lot of companies that do Oyster Flex style straps on their own, Everest, Rubber Bee, just to name two. So even if you have the whole thing in your collection, even if you do want to try out a rubber strap before then, there are options as well. And if, you know, for people out there who are more like vintage Rolex fans or something, I know plenty of people who have an Explorer 2 on a rubber strap, or, you know, other Submariners or Daytonas on a rubber strap. So even if it's not a factory Rolex Oyster Flex strap, there are options if you do want to play around a little bit. All right, Justin, we've got a lot of watches that we saved up while we've been talking. Why don't we just kick it over to the notepad and see kind of the full list of what we covered today?
Yeah, for sure. So there we go. We have 5 selections on the current lineup there. The Rolex Yachtmaster 40 millimeter that we just talked about. The Omega Speedmaster, which is kind of like that matte black, like bold look with a great yellow accent. The Richard Mille RM005, which is, I guess, like the bucket list watch. And then like the vintage one that you recommended. Yeah, absolutely. And then the one that I want to bring back, the Audemars Piguet 15400 ST Black Dial, that has gone up significantly in price from the last time I checked on them.
Yeah, and will continue to do so. If you had to pick one as kind of like the most likely one you would get next, what's on your radar?
That's tough. I think I would probably say it would be that 15400 ST, but yeah, the last time I checked, I think at the time when I picked up the 15300 ST, I picked up that one for about $17,000. And at the time, I believe the 15400 was about 30, 35 within that window. I might be wrong, but it was definitely not $85,000 Canadian for stainless. So that is crazy. And even like looking back at the 15300, that has gone up significantly. But at the same time, so is the Daytona. And I actually just checked the value of the Hulk yesterday, and I didn't think the Hulk had gone up that much since I purchased it. I think I paid about $16,000 for that one, American. And that one had also had a pretty significant growth in value as well. So I think from this, the first one I would bring back is that 15400. It's just very different from anything else in the collection.
Yeah, I mean, that's the mind-bending aspect of this industry and in the weird little watch world is some of those prices, you know, that seemed astronomical years ago now seem suddenly very reasonable. It's just the world that we're in.
For sure.
All right, we covered a lot of cool ground here, some more mainstream stuff, a little bit deeper cut stuff, newer, vintage, precious metals, steel, flashy, understated. Thanks for running all over the forest with us, Justin. This has been a super, super fun day.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And I just had so much fun being able to talk about watches. It's usually like a conversation that we have like at events and stuff, but very rarely do we get to really go into the detail in the videos and talk to experts like yourself on a site that I visit quite regularly. So yeah, it's been really nice to be able to go through this whole process and actually learn quite a bit.
Well, hey, next time we'll have to do it in person. You can come to New York anytime. Or hey, I'll go to Victoria. I love that place.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for coming on. I'm Thomas Hendricks with Chrono 24. Justin Tse, check him out on YouTube and elsewhere. We'll have more videos coming to the channel all the time. And in the meantime, enjoy your watches.